Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm Glyptis Ann Grider-Jones. I'm here with the Kentucky Department of Education, and one of the roles I enjoy having is serving as liaison for our Commissioner Student Advisory Council. This is our first meeting of the 2024-25 school year. We're really excited to have you here in person for our first Advisory Council meeting. And this is also the first Advisory Council meeting for our new Commissioner of Education, Dr. Robbie Fletcher. Before I hand it over, just a quick introduction about his background. He started on July 1, so just a month or so ago, and he was previously the superintendent of Lawrence County Schools. He brings more than 30 years of education experience into the role, and he comes from Eastern Kentucky region. He has participated in several advisory council groups, statewide programs, councils, and initiatives. And he grew up in Martin County here in Kentucky, and he earned his degrees from the Morehead State University and the University of Kentucky. He started out as a math teacher in 1996 in Williamstown Independent. I believe we have a student from Williamstown here on our council. And he taught previously in Bourbon County and Martin County before transitioning into principal roles and ultimately the superintendent of Lawrence County, where he joins us now. So I'll turn it over for a welcome from our new commissioner, Dr. Robbie Fletcher.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. I appreciate that. If there are any pictures or videos of some superintendent in Lawrence County with his tie around his head screaming all in LC, I don't know that guy. But yes, I used to spend a lot of time in PEP sections actually as superintendent. So it was a lot of fun. I do miss that part. So this is one of the reasons why I've been looking forward to this since July 1. It gets me back to see students again. Of course, I've seen a few gentlemen, and it's been a great honor to have students as a part of our work. And I'm looking forward to this day. Again, I had this circled on my calendar for quite some time. Again, going back with a little bit of background, I did teach at Williamstown Independent. I started off, I was hired because the superintendent met me and said, we need to teach math-based physics. And if we don't, we're going to lose a student. So I was hired and I taught physics. I taught some other classes too. And then I got married. My wife was living in Lexington. She was in medical school. She is a family practice, family physician now. She is signing on to be an associate professor at the University of Kentucky and being a associate professor but seeing patients in Georgetown. So that'll start in October for her. So she is been practicing medicine for a few years. I won't say how many because I want to stay out of the doghouse. But she's been doing that for quite some time. She actually did her residency at UK. But while she was there, I taught at Williamstown Independent for 2 years. I loved it. Absolutely enjoyed Williamstown Independent. But after getting married, it was a 54-mile drive for me one way. So I wound up going to Bourbon County. I taught AP Calculus there. I taught Algebra 2. I taught ACT Prep. Loved it. I apologize to those students I had my first year of AP Calculus. I learned so much. I probably learned more than they did that first year. I did a lot of workshops and then absolutely enjoyed teaching AP Calculus and Algebra 2 and all that in between. Once my wife finished, we did move back home, which was Martin County. I had the opportunity to teach there. So I went from teaching AP Calculus, and the only math job that was open was 7th grade mathematics. So I became a 7th grade math teacher. So that was different for me, also different for my students, I'm sure. But it was a great time being back home, and it was great to be a part of that. Life took me through as a middle school teacher, middle school assistant principal, middle school principal, high school principal. All of these I was a principal of the middle school that I attended as a student at Warfield Middle. I was the high school principal. So imagining trying to talk to teachers that had you in class and make sure you get your lesson plans in, those type of conversations. But again, I taught there I was in Martin County for several years, and I was blessed to have the opportunity to be superintendent in Lawrence County. And I was there for 10 years. If you go back and look up All In LC, that was the battle cry, if you will. And I'll talk a little bit about All In just in a second. But not to take up too much time, I do want to give you a little bit of my priorities. I'll give you a couple. The very first one is building relationships. I have great relationships with students. I always have as a superintendent, so I'm looking forward to this. I always try to be with students on a daily basis as much as I can. But also, too, in this role, you're a little farther away from the school setting, so I do prioritize making school visits. As a matter of fact, at the end of this week, I'm making a trip to the Great West. I won't call it the Wild West yet, but the Great West, and I'm going to visit Union County, Murray Independent. Also, I'm going to visit Livingston, and then on the way back, Christian County. So trying to visit the folks in Western Kentucky and make sure that they feel like they're just as much a part of the Commonwealth as everyone else. Because honestly, a lot of times they get left out because people in Eastern Kentucky think that Lexington's Central Kentucky. It's like, no, you got another 5 hours to go to get to Western Kentucky at least. So again, it's a great opportunity to visit. I have visited so far Shelby County. I was their opening day speaker, went back to Bourbon, which was where I taught, and also went to Rockcastle County, did some visits there already, but looking forward to being in classrooms with students coming up pretty soon. I've also visited the Kentucky School for the Deaf and the Kentucky School for the Blind, as I am the superintendent for those two buildings. That's kind of a lot of people don't know that about the commissioner role. So I've had that opportunity, and I've really enjoyed that aspect of this job too. Other things, one of the things that I provide for each student here is a pen. You'll see this on my coat about everywhere I go, and it says All In KY. If you receive an email from the commissioner, it's going to say usually, "Thank you for being ... all in." And that's my closing for every one of my emails. And the reason for that is for three reasons. One, there were several people throughout my being a student in public education that contributed to who I am today. I had a teacher, a high school teacher that took me everywhere that I was able to go. He was our academic team coach. I was on the academic team. Actually, my wife was on the academic team. So there's some benefits to being on an academic team. You get a very brilliant lady that you get to marry up. So with that being said, we traveled everywhere. I have a lot of firsts just because of public education. The very first time I saw flat ground, if you want to call Louisville flat, it was with my academic team. The very first time I was on an escalator. Yes, an escalator. I was with my high school academic team. As a matter of fact, fast forward to being a principal at Warfield, I had a student named Taylor. I won't go into the last name. We took him to the mall for the very first time in a field trip. He got on the escalator. I rode with him. He got to the top and he said, "Mr. Fletcher, can we do that again?" I said, "Absolutely." We rode that escalator 3 times. And I wanted to do it again because I was seeing in Taylor, I was seeing Robbie. So opportunities like that, sometimes people take for granted. First time I was on a plane, we flew to Rice University and competed in a national tournament. We'd won several tournaments in the state, 4th in the state in quick recall, won a couple other statewide tournaments. So the first time I saw the Gulf of Mexico was with my high school academic team. The very first time I saw a baseball game was in the Houston Astrodome. And I also played high school baseball, pitched and played catcher, did both, not at the same time. But the first time I saw a baseball game, I saw Dwight Gooden pitch and at the Astrodome. So all that's part of public education. And people like Frank Baldridge and also the cooks, the bus drivers that got me to where I need to be, also helped me feed me and all those things. That's my promise to them. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to be all in for them. And also to the students, each and every day, I have a commitment to you that you're going to get my best. I'm going to fall short from time to time, but I promise you it won't be from lack of effort. And then the last part is being all in is I want to make sure that I challenge each person that reads an email from me. Are you giving your absolute best for the students each and every day? So when you look at the pen, there is a story behind it, and that's the story. And it says #AllInKY. That's my hopes, is to show there is a commitment to the people that were before me that invested in me. And every one of you at this table can point at 1, 2, 15 people, whether it be your parents. My parents invested in me. I promise you I'm going to be all in for my parents. For my kids, I do have 2 kids. I have a senior, Eli, and I also have a daughter who's in medical school, who's following her mother's footprints, not her dad's, tried my best, but she was not going to go into education. She's in her second year of medical school at UK. But I want to be all in for them and for you. That's where the second part comes in. Make sure that I'm all in for students. And at the end of the day, it's a challenge. So that's the story behind the pen. And I wanted to share that with you before we get started. So I'm honored to be your commissioner. And when I say yours, I'm here to serve you first and foremost. The adults come second, but the students come first. Okay. And with that being said, Dr. Jones, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner, and welcome again. It's our first meeting with the Commissioner. So glad to have everyone here, including Commissioner Fletcher. I'm sharing here on the slide our agenda. You all may notice it's a very full agenda. We welcome your participation, active participation in the meeting. I will move now to our roll call. I'm going to call everyone's name. And as part of our, especially since we have several new members, this is an opportunity to kind of help break the ice. So as I call your name, please say present or signal that you're here. And then I'd like for you to share something, maybe just one goal, if you're comfortable sharing, that you'd like to aim for this school year, so we can get to know each other a little bit better. Just something, a goal. It could be personal, academic, professional. Just share something you're looking forward to in the next year ahead. So again, I'm going to call roll, and just let me know if you're here. And if there's anyone joining on the chat, please feel free to unmute or share in the chat that you're present. So again, just share something you're looking forward to in the year ahead. So Lisa Abrampaw.
Present. And I am looking forward to being a sympathetic leader this year.
And is everyone able to hear on the mics? I just want to make sure we could hear on sound. Perfect. Awesome. Thanks, Lisa. Mary Beth Boland.
Present. And I just want to work on my leadership skills this year.
Graham Borden.
Present. This year I want to work on exploring career fields and finding out what I'm interested in.
Annie Cockram O'Donnell.
Present. How to interact with hearing people.
Awesome. Welcome. Isabella Edgehill.
Present. This year I'm excited to engage with my community in new ways.
Anaji Fox.
Present. And this year I'm excited to do a lot of things with my senior class.
Manas Garla.
Present. This year I'm hoping to apply for some internships or some opportunities outside of school.
Preston Graham.
Present. Something I'm hoping to accomplish it with Mr. Fletcher, of course, starting with the Board of Education. So I am y'all's student representative. So trying to take notes on this meeting. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law.
And a board meeting.
And board meeting. So I'll be taking notes.
Thanks. Samara Higgins.
Present. I'm looking forward to gaining more knowledge about the education field and using that in my career.
Onette Irakiza.
Present, and my goal for this year is to read the whole New Testament of the Bible.
Awesome. Peter Jefferson.
Present, and I am interested in working as a senior to help mentor some of the underclassmen in our school.
Alan Kalambai.
Present, and my goal is to become student voice so that I could speak for them right now.
Sophia Langford.
Present. My goal this year is to help lead 5 school clubs to success.
Gabriella McAdams.
Present. My goal is to score the most points on academic team.
Good goal. Tanvi Rakesh.
Present, and my goal is to attend as many senior events as possible.
Daniel Ratley.
Present. My goal this year is to gear up for next year, gear up for my senior year next year.
Luisa Sanchez Almenarez.
Present. Sorry, I'm a little bit sick, guys. But this year I hope to build stronger relationships with my peers in order to really share and highlight their stories and amplify their voices in our brand new school newspaper.
Abigail Sears.
Here, I guess my goal for this year, specifically within this group, is
I'm excited to learn new perspectives and I guess hear from them and implement new solutions using those.
Sophia Staples.
Present, I would say my goal this year is to help lead my academic team to doing well again at state.
Another academic team. Awesome. Kwa Ta.
Present. I think one of my goals outside of academic team would probably be like expanding the student representation cause on boards of education.
Austin Eric Vidito.
Here. And I want to take our golf team to state. So that's a goal of mine.
Carly Watts. Okay. Aliette Yanez Medina.
Present. This year, my goal is to explore more the medical field and just keep a high GPA.
And India Young.
Present. I want to graduate in the top 10 of my class this year, so that's really what I'm working towards.
And is there anyone whose name I did not call? Well, welcome everyone. Really glad to have you here. And we'll now move forward for an approval of our summary notes from our last meeting. So we've shared that information with you all by email. And so now we're just going to do a voice vote, going to call just for an approval. If I could have someone make a motion to approve those minutes or those summary notes, I'll need a second, and then we'll all do a voice vote to approve. So is there a motion to approve the summary notes from our April 24, 2024 meeting?
I make the motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right. So now, again, we're going to vote to approve. So if you're all in favor, say aye, and we'll just do a voice vote or signal in favor. Okay. Any opposition? And hearing none, those have been approved. Thank you for that. That approval. And so now we're going to turn the floor over to Dr. Michelle Searcy. She's our program coordinator for comprehensive school counseling here at the Kentucky Department of Education, and that's part of our Office of Teaching and Learning here at KD. So Dr. Searcy.
Morning. It's so good to see you guys. This is one of my favorite things to get to do because I get to work with all of you guys and your rock stars. And today you're going to hear from a lot of people. And you're going to hear a lot of great information. But before we get started and we jumpstart for the day, I want to let you guys know that your voice will be the most important that we hear. It's not mine. It's not Dr. Fletcher's, Dr. Tucker's, Dr. Jones. It's yours. Like, you are sitting on this committee for a reason. So I know the first time you come in here, it can feel a little formal. It can feel a little tense and maybe you have some stress. But I want you to know that we want to hear your voice. That's why you're here. And so before we get started today, we are going to do some mindfulness exercises, which is something that I do quite frequently. And on your table or right in front of you, you had a notebook. And on that notebook, this is what we're going to journal in throughout the year. So you can take notes in it, of course, but we're also going to take some time to reflect and to journal every time we meet, so that you have an opportunity to process what it is you're feeling and to get down on paper what's in your head. We'll come back to the notebook in a minute. I'm going to pass around this little baggie, and I was at a conference this summer and I thought of each of you guys. And I thought about how often when we're in spaces of leadership that it can become very tense. Our anxiety starts to kick up, our hearts beat really rapidly, and we just need to slow down, take a minute to breathe. And have you guys seen these stickers before? Well, awesome. I can see some. These are breathing stickers. And what you're going to do is you trace around the figure 8 as you're breathing in. And when you get to the middle, it'll count 1, 2, 3. And in your head, you're going to count 1, 2, 3, and then you transition to taking your breath out. So we're going to take a breath in and take a breath out. I'm going to pass these around here in a second, and you can pick whichever one you want. There's lots of different varieties here. And you're going to stick it on your notebook so that when we come together or when you're in a space of high anxiety, high stress, and you need to just take a moment and breathe, you can. So we're going to take just a second. I want you to kind of center your mind to where we are right now. Let your mind relax a little bit. We're going to take a deep breath in. Hold it. 1, 2, 3. And now we're going to slowly take a deep breath out. 1, 2, 3. Okay, one more time. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to slowly let our breath out. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so Indy and Peter, I know you guys were with me last year. You know I like to talk, and that is a problem because I go over my time. So if you two can be my timekeeper, I have 25 minutes. I need a 5-minute warning. And then you got to get out. All right, I'm going to pass these around and you can go on and take one if you would like. While you're doing that, I want to invite Dr. Woods Tucker. He is our Deputy Commissioner and Chief Equity Academic Officer, and he wants to bring greetings to you guys as well.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Come on now, you can do better than that. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So excited to see you all. It warms my heart. As our commissioner stated, that we are here for you. You are our being, and your voice and your experiences are so important. And it also warms my heart that each meeting I get an opportunity to address you all. And I too can be long-winded, but I promise you I will be short-winded. And again, on behalf of our commissioner and our board, thank you for what you do in representing the best of Kentucky schools. Your voice is extremely important. And we want this to be really conversational. We know many of you are cool, especially the returning folks, the new folks will get to know you. And we want to hang out with you. We want to really build those relationships. I've had an opportunity to hang out with your board member, Preston. How's it going, Preston?
Going good.
We've had a good time, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So again, thank you. Thank you for choosing to lead. Listening to you will be fantastic. And this Mindful Minute will be part of each of our meetings. When you look at metrics across the country, whether it's high school, middle school, or college, students' mental health is really declining. And we believe a big part of that is not having that connectedness that's so important, not having those relationships, not having that sense of belonging. We believe those things are hugely important. And I'll say the next thing, and I'm glad our commissioner and our State Board of Education are both committed to this, listening to our students, because you all hold the key. Later on in the program, we're going to talk about chronic absenteeism, which is an issue across this country. And we want to hear ideas and solutions from you all. Thank you. Thank you. Again, you really filled my heart, and I know you all are going to have a successful school year. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Go on and advance to the next slide. We want to take a pulse check real quick. So I want you guys to tell me, this is a fist to 5 activity. You don't have to shout it from the rooftops. You can hold it up in front of your hand and right in front of your chest if you want to. But I want to see, how's your school year started? So 1 is amazing. It is fantastic. You are geared up. You are ready. 2 is you are just mind blown. Like the school year started and your mind is just exploding with all of the opportunities or with all of the stress or everything that's going on because you're a senior or a junior and you got lots of things coming up. 3 is it's dreamy. Best year ever. 4 is just so. Like, calm down, woman. It's just all right. And then 5 is you're exhausted. It just started, but you're already exhausted. Even talking about it is exhausting. So let me do a pulse check. You can hold it up low. You can hold it up high if you want to, but show me where you are, 1 to 5. Doing pretty good for the most part. I am mind blown as well. So we're in comfort. All right, so we are going to do a welcome and inclusion activity, and this is going to involve you talking to the person to your left. If the person to your left is me, we can talk. All right, can you go on and advance that next slide? Okay, so we are going to have 2 different questions that you can talk to with the person next to you. And we're just going to take a couple of minutes. So if you can go on and put up those 2 questions. So the first one is, in 3 words or less, describe your current vibe. Like right now, what's your vibe? Or If that one's way too deep and you don't have the mental capacity to go there yet, you can answer the second question. What is one food that you love that other people find absolutely strange or disgusting? I'll give you an example of that. Quarterback for UK, what did he put in his coffee?
Mayonnaise.
It's strange. I mean, it works for him, but it's a little bit strange. So those are our two questions. So turn to the person to your left, introduce yourself, and we'll come back together in like 2 minutes. Does someone want to share something that you learned about your neighbor that you didn't know before? And y'all, I have incredible wait time.
I learned that she is overwhelmed with senior things and applying for colleges and scholarships. And I also learned that she went to GSP last summer.
Very cool. Else is overwhelmed with the college application process and scholarship. You are in good company. I think you share that with your peers. Thank you. One more person. Yes.
Yep. Okay, I learned that Anashi is she tried the TikTok trend where you add like pickles and Dr. Pepper, and she was into it. So
Pickles and Dr. Pepper.
Oh, goodness.
I'm gonna have to trust you on that, babe.
It wasn't bad. It wasn't like disgusting. It was like, all right.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys for sharing a little bit. And I am trying to learn ASL. So good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Awesome. So next we're going to go to our next slide here, and we're going to talk a little bit about goal setting. Now you heard Dr. Jones talk about that just a second ago, and she asked you what your goal was for the year. Now the purpose of having goals is it's kind of like a North Star. Sometimes we can get lost in the day-to-day life and just the stressors of relationships, or time moves too fast, you're pulled in too many directions, and we can forget about what our goal is. So the point of a North Star historically is when you get lost, look up navigationally, you can find that North Star and you can say, oh yeah, that's where I'm trying to go. That's what I'm trying to reach for, right? And so we want to give you an opportunity to set a goal for what we're doing here. This is such a great opportunity, and we are so glad that you are all here, but we want you to get something out of the experience. And we want to make sure that as you're going through the advisory council, that you have your goals set in mind. What is it that you want to accomplish on this particular committee? What is it that you want to do? Not all goals, bless you, are created equally, right? Like some goals are not very healthy at all. And I'll give you an example from one of my kids. Is an extreme, I have four children, and one of them is an extreme high achiever, and he wanted to finish college a year early with a 4.0 in the honors program. Is that a good goal? It's not a bad goal, but is it a healthy goal? Probably not, because none of us are perfect. And at times we set goals for ourselves that require perfection. And when we require perfection of ourselves, we don't know how to handle it when we don't hit that mark. And it can be very disappointing. So we want to make sure that the goals that you set for yourself give you some opportunity to breathe a little bit. It's okay to have high expectations of yourself, but none of us are perfect. So we want to kind of adjust some of those goals so that the goals that we are setting are achievable and they're healthy. We want the goal to inspire us and not to completely curl us up in a ball where we're crying if we don't hit it, right? So let's go on to that next slide. We're going to talk about two different types of goals. You've probably heard of a SMART goal before, yeah? What is a SMART goal?
Measurable.
Measurable.
Attainable.
Attainable.
Reasonable.
What's the R?
Realistic.
Relevant, but it has a purpose.
Oh, okay.
And then time bound. It has to have an ending. We want to have a cutoff, and we want our goals to be written to where it's good to have life goals, right? But we also need to have smaller goals. Like, what do you want to accomplish the first semester of school? What is it that you really want to make sure you accomplish the first couple of months of school? You can also have a long-term goal. Like, I want to make sure that I get into the colleges of my dream, like what I've been working towards. That's fine. Let's talk about a WHOOP goal. Anybody know what it is? Didn't think so, but it's fun to say. All right, can you guys go on and put those up for me in advance? Okay, so a WHOOP goal is a wish, something that you're trying to accomplish, an outcome. What do you want that accomplishment to be? The most important thing that I think on this is the second O, and that's the obstacles. Like, what do you anticipate could be an obstacle for you achieving your goal? And then what's your plan for that? So if my son didn't get an A and he got a B, not the end of the world, by the way, what's his plan for that? So how many of you have heard of this quote before? With great power comes great opportunity. Somebody knows who said that.
Responsibility.
Responsibility.
What is it?
Uncle Ben.
Great responsibility.
Comes great
With great responsibility. With great power comes great responsibility. Who said it?
Uncle Ben.
Uncle Ben.
Spider-Man.
From Spider-Man. And so as you guys are thinking about your experience here, I think that plays into it, right? This is a great opportunity. It's great power. You want to make sure you get the most out of it. So we're going to watch a short video. Sorry, I skipped ahead. Can we go back one? We're going to watch a short video on WHOOP goals, and then I'm going to give you an opportunity to write one for this experience. Where am I at on time?
You're in 17 minutes in.
Perfect. Okay, so we're still good. So we're going to take this paper if you need it. We're going to use this to help you write a goal that you would like to achieve while you're here on this advisory committee. You can also do this in other parts of your life. Why this is so impactful is because it helps you to prepare for things that might impede you meeting your goal. I'll give you my example. My daughter's getting married in October. Not doing okay with this. But I also wanted to make sure that I toned up a little bit before the wedding. And the problem is I really like Chick-fil-A a lot. And I really like sugary drinks, like coffee drinks, a lot. So I had to say, okay, when I'm driving into work every day, I passed several coffee places and a Chick-fil-A. So I had to come up with a strategy, because if I'm hungry or I want coffee, I'm going to pull right in. My strategy is I know that if I have money on my app, if I have money on my Chick-fil-A app, I'm going to go through that drive-through, because I'm like, well, the money's already spent. Like, they've already got my money. It's in the app. So I'm not really spending any more money. So I'm much more apt to pull into that drive-through. If I don't have money on there, I'm holding myself accountable, because my husband sees my bank account too. And he's been like, I thought you were trying to curb that Chick-fil-A and Starbucks addiction. And so that helps to hold me accountable. So that is a strategy I utilized, that if I come against this obstacle of driving into work, this is how I'm going to handle it. Make sense? Okay, let's go on and click to that next slide. We already talked about Spider-Man. So when we say wish, what we're really talking about is passion. So what is your passion and what goal do you want to achieve? So we're going to take a few minutes, and you may not get it all the way done here today, and that's okay. But I'm going to ask you about your WHOOP goal the next time that we meet, and it'll be virtually. So the first thing is a wish. What is a wish or a challenge that is feasible for you to achieve? Second, what would be the best outcome of you fulfilling your wish? Like, what can we expect to see if you fulfill your wish or your challenge or your passion? What is your main inner obstacle? For today, we're going to talk about your inner obstacle. What is your main inner obstacle that stands in your way of fulfilling your wish? And then lastly, what can you do to overcome that? So if maybe I heard a lot of people say that they wanted to develop leadership skills. And a part of that may be that you don't really like talking in public. So that may be something that you want to work on during this session, is I'm not really comfortable speaking out in front of others publicly. So that's something that I'm going to work on. And maybe your obstacle is that you have an inner voice that tells yourself, nobody wants to hear what you think, or somebody else can say it better. Or what if I start talking and I mess up? What are people going to think? Like, you can have that negative self-talk, and that is your inner struggle, as an example. And then what can you do to overcome that? So let's take just about 5 minutes. I want you to think through this worksheet. If you need help, it'll guide you through. And then if anyone is finished and want to share their goal, I would love to hear that. So I am going to go on and start the clock. Let's take 5 minutes and go. How was the process? Was it pretty simplistic? How to write a goal? Break it down into manageable chunks. I sometimes find that the WIC process can be a little easier to process and to go through than the SMART goals. Does anyone want to share what their goal is for being a part of the advisory board this year? Peter.
Sure, I said that I wanted to understand the full scope of Kentucky schools and students. The rationale behind that is I live in Fayette County where there are lots and lots of people, but we're all kind of in the same place. And I've started to meet new people through this from Western and Eastern Kentucky and Northern. So I'd love to know more, even farther from where I live.
Oh, thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
I would like to create plans or discuss the student drug epidemic and vaping epidemic in our schools. And I know that my school has some problems with that. Some other schools in my county have problems with that. I don't really have any ideas right now, but I think I'd like to discuss it with you all sometime.
I think that's a great goal. And I think that bringing your voice to that and saying, hey, this is a problem that I see amongst my peers and I want to discuss it. I don't want to just watch it happen. I want to be a part of the solution. Thank you for sharing. One more. Anybody else? Yes.
My goal is to advocate for greater minority involvement in gifted and talented education. So since I've been in America, I've been in gifted and talented, and I found that as a Black girl, it's very, very lonely. I'm usually the only one or one of few. So making sure that we are giving minorities the opportunity to test into these programs and to succeed in them is something that really matters to me. And I hope we can make a change in this council.
I love your passion for that. And you're absolutely right. Like, we know representation matters, inclusivity matters, and we want to make sure that all of our students have opportunities to be a part of advanced learning in our schools. So thank you.
Thank you.
I look forward to hearing some of your thoughts on that and learning from you as well. All right, you guys, I have gone over my limit. I have been told by 1 minute. So thank you for letting me be a part of your advisory council today. I look forward to hearing more about your WHOOP goals the next time we meet. And go be great. See you soon.
Thanks, Dr. Searcy. Next, we're excited to have Jessica Fletcher from the Kentucky Center for Statistics and Trinity Walsh, coordinator of early post-secondary opportunities from the Council on Post-Secondary Education. They're going to be joining us here today. If y'all like to come forward. They have a presentation and are looking for student feedback on Kentucky's college and career access platform. So welcome to Jessica and Trinity.
Morning, everybody. Like you said, I'm Jessica Fletcher, and I'm here today with my counterpart Trinity, and we want to talk to you about a really exciting thing that we've been working on for the past several months. But this is actually a process that's been going on for several years now. So this is the first time that we are getting in front of our target audience, which is you all. This is a website that is built just for students and for people who are looking for a new pathway in life. So trying to figure out what they want to do after they graduate from high school, after they complete a career program, complete a certificate or a college degree, and what they do from there. So we have created a website that we want to show you now. But first, I want Trinity to introduce herself a little bit and talk a little bit about her role in the program as well.
Hi guys, my name is Trinity Walsh. I work for the Council on Post-Secondary Education. Raise your hand today if you've ever heard of the Council on Post-Secondary Education. A few of you have, so that's not usually the norm. You know, we are an organization that helps to facilitate and organize the the public universities in the state of Kentucky. For people that are still usually uncertain about what we do, sometimes I'll say to them, it's kind of like we're the Board of Education for the colleges in Kentucky. And then people kind of understand a little bit about what we do. Before I worked for CPE, I was a high school counselor. So I have been a high school counselor for 26 years. And I have worked with high school students all of my life. So you are my favorite people. Don't tell my husband that. So I am really looking forward to hearing what you have to say about our platform. I have put a lot of work into what I think that might be something that you are going to need and use and be interested in, with a lot of feedback from other folks. But you guys are really the people that we want to hear what you have to say about this platform and how it could impact you and your peers.
I guess I need to explain KY Stats a little bit before I jump right into this. But the Kentucky Center for Statistics, also known as KY Stats, is Kentucky's agency that collects both education data. So anything from student test scores to your ACT scores to your college going rates, things like that. We measure that, we analyze that, we do reporting and research on student outcomes in Kentucky, but we also have data on the workforce. So we have a team of about 30 people who analyze Kentucky's unemployment rates, Kentucky's labor market information, and we kind of pile all of that together and are able to do some really cool things with Kentucky's both education and labor market information that a lot of other states aren't able to do. We call that the longitudinal data system, which looks at everything from, starting in preschool all the way until you graduate and you're in the workforce. So lots of really cool data, but we have for many years struggled with figuring out how to best situate that data so that everybody can kind of understand the very complex numbers that kind of go along with all of that. So this is our attempt at that. So with that, I will have, if you could pull up our slides first. And we're going to give you an introduction video about what our website is, and then we will kind of talk through it piece by piece. Then we're going to go through an activity where you can kind of interact with the website and talk through some of your feedback. That is kind of the synopsis of what we've been working on for several years. But just to get started, if you'll go to the next slide, kind of what you heard in that intro is Futurity features information on Kentucky's career paths, where you can go to school for education and training. So whether your plan is to go to college, a 4-year college, a 2-year college, or possibly getting training for something very, very specific that might not require a degree, but some kind of certification. It also shows you how to pay for college, gives you information about filling out your FAFSA, your KEYS money. All of that is kind of in one place. And then one of the really cool things is we also have some tips about how to apply for jobs, how to create your resume, really trying to be a very all-encompassing one-stop shop for your education to career journey. So with that, if you'll go to the next slide, I kind of want to quickly walk you through what the site is, but in just a second, I will show a QR code so you all can pull out your phones, scan the QR code and sort of interact with it yourselves. So just from the navigation menu, we've got 4 main sections of the website. We have the Future Finder, which is that data tool that shows you all of the different occupations. We have the first section is more about like figuring out what you want to do. So there are career quizzes. If you're like me, when I was in college and in high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. It took a significant amount of thought work and just kind of understanding what my goals and values were to kind of get to where I was able to declare my major when I was almost a junior in college. Don't tell anybody. But I really like that this helps people to think a little bit outside the box and understand what careers Kentucky has to offer, because that's something I didn't know back in 1997 when I was in high school. So if you'll go to the next slide, we have also a survey chat feature, which is a little bit like an AI chat bot where you can interact with the website and kind of tell it what you want to find, because there is lots and lots of information. This kind of helps narrow down your search a little bit. So you can interact with the survey chat feature. On the next slide, you'll see that once you kind of choose what you're looking for, it'll give you some results. So you'll be able to select from a list of 5 different web pages that will then kind of jump you into Futurity. So on the next slide, we are, this is the Future Finder that I mentioned. You'll see that it shows you things like job description. So gives you, just in a couple of sentences, a description of about 700 jobs in Kentucky in 22 different industries. And we also include like how many job openings there are going to be over the next several years in Kentucky, as well as what the salary ranges for the job from your entry level all the way to your experienced workers. And then also one of the coolest things I think is it shows you where you can major in those occupations here in Kentucky. So for this example shows registered nurses. There's lots of registered nursing programs in Kentucky schools, so the list is very long. But you'll see that like once you kind of navigate through some of the different occupations, that list gets shorter and shorter just depending on how specific that occupation is. So next slide. This is your college, your majors tab. So kind of goes a little bit deeper into your majors across the state. So you have information on there's college costs, especially if it's a public university. We're a little bit behind in trying to get some of the data on the private universities, but for your schools like EKU and Western, you'll see your average loan amount. You'll see some very detailed information about students who have graduated from those programs and what their average salary ranges are. So on the next slide, you'll see colleges. That actually shows you a map of where the college is in the state. So you can see how close it is to your home. If you're like me, when I was graduating high school, I wanted to go as far away from high school as possible. So I went north where I was from in Rockcastle County. I ended up going to NKU for my first year of college. So that map I think is really helpful if you're kind of like trying to choose based on where you want to be in the state. But also that layout shows you a little bit about your cost after financial aid, your graduation rates for specific schools, and also links you to the school's website and application. On the next slide, that's the last tab. So this one is more for students who are about to enter high school or who still need to choose a career pathway while they're still in school. Throughout the state, different schools offer very different career pathways. So this was sort of our way of helping students find which pathways are available in their areas. So that's the final tab on Future Finder, and then the Choose Your Path section of the website kind of shows you some links to various career quizzes. It shows you information about apprenticeships, just kind of lots of different ways to give you ideas of what is out there. So on the next slide, we are under the Continue Your Education, which goes a little bit deeper into your kind of high school to college pathway. So this gives you lots of good information on education and training, and Trinity, since you developed this part, do you want to talk a little bit about this section really quick?
Sure. As we think about continuing education, we know that most people don't just wake up in the morning and say, I've decided that I'm going to be an engineer. Now, maybe some of you do, but usually it takes a little bit of soul searching and thinking about what are the things that I value? What are the skills that I bring to the table? What are my character strengths? And how are all of those things going to play together for a future career, a future major? And also, where am I going to go to school? What kind of college am I going to attend? Because all of those things you have to kind of know about yourself in order to make those types of things happen. So when you're looking in the continue your education section, what we try to do is we try to give you some tools to start thinking about those ideas. And then from there, once you've discovered some things about yourself, then we start to understand the college process, the major process. And once you have decided, okay, here's where I want to go, here's what I would like to do, how am I going to pay for it? And start talking about that paying process. So we try to help you guide you through that journey. That way, if you don't have a lot of people around you talking about it, you can help guide yourself through that journey.
Then on the next slide, she already mentioned paying for college, but this really shows you like what options are there for figuring out how to finance what we used to call the section was finance your future, because you really are figuring out how to pay for what comes next in your life. So everything from scholarship information to your federal application for student aid is linked on this section of the website. And then the last section is Start Your Career. This is where you will find the jumping off point to the Kentucky Career Center, which is the state's job bank of open occupations throughout Kentucky. But you also have your map that shows you where all the apprenticeship opportunities are located, and where all of the work-based learning programs are as well. So lots and lots of information to dig into, but if you'll click over to the next slide, we want you all to interact with this yourselves and tell us, what you think is cool, what you think we need to work on, and what comes next in this process. So, right now, Futurity is still a test site, so you might see some typos or data errors on the website, but we're hoping to go live with it probably early in 2025. But we need everybody's feedback before we can do that. So that's why this conversation is so important to us. So Trinity, if you want to talk a little bit about the activity, we will get that started and go from there.
Okay. First thing I want you to do, I know most of you just scanned that QR code and got yourself where you needed, but do me a favor, put your phone down real quick, stand up, and just take a stretch. We've been sitting for about an hour. So every good educator knows you got to get the blood moving before you can think well. So take a stretch, say hi to your neighbor. We've been very quiet here, and when you feel like you're ready to go, then you can sit back down.
It was just a mental nudge to stay awake.
It was the worst. Why don't we do that at regular meetings, guys?
Always incorporate it.
All right. Now, you can do this one of two ways. Most of you have a digital phone device that you can use if you want to. I also see some people with computers. So feel free to use your computer as well. Or if you have a tablet, you can use that as well. Or you can use both, because we are looking for feedback when it comes to handheld devices, but we're also looking for feedback on other types of devices like a computer or a tablet. So however you want to look at this website, perfectly fine with us. Once you are on the website, what I want you to do, and I'm giving you very little instruction because I want to see if you can find these things yourself, because that's important to us, is find the Future Finder. And once you get there, you're going to look up a career that might be of interest to you. And if you're like, oh, I don't even know, I have no idea, just pick anything, any career that is, and if you need help, I'll give you a career.
And by the way, if you are using your laptop, the URL is at the bottom of that QR code if you need that.
And I've written it here. And then once you are to your career, look and see which colleges in Kentucky offer majors related to that career. Hopefully many. And find out where that college is located. And then check out the high demand careers in that major field. And then you're gonna find the Kentucky Career Center portal, okay? All of those instructions are up on the screen because I gave you a bunch of them. And if I were you, I would not remember all of those instructions. So we're gonna give you just a few minutes to kind of go through this activity. And if you need help, just raise your hand and we will come around and help you. And as you're going through this, if you have thoughts about this, any of the sites that you're on, if you want to jot them down, that would be great. Anything that looks good, anything that is not acting right, anything that would be better. I try to pretend that I'm a 16, 17, and 18-year-old, but I am not. My children tell me daily that I am not. Usually in words that I don't understand. So, will you turn to the next slide for me, please? Thank you. Okay, so I want you to think about where you have explored thus far, and does the navigation of what you have seen so far make sense? An honest feedback is welcome.
You should make it more easy to navigate.
Okay, so do you have a suggestion for me?
Yeah, like you put something in a different page, and then for us to continue, we had to go back there and then go to the next one. It's made it so hard.
Okay. I'm going to get some more feedback from you on that here in just a few minutes. Thank you. Appreciate that. What else?
Oh, okay. So right now when I go on it, it feels too much like a website. And so it looks like it's not formatted for a phone because a lot of the fonts overlap and are not able to be read easily. And so I think in terms of making it more accessible by giving it sort of a more app feel, is definitely not putting as many tabs, just making it so that on the front page you have sort of everything you need, or the big sections of like, here are the careers, here's the future finder, all on the front page, and then give an option to go to different areas, but all on the home so that it feels more like an app and less like a website that is, you have to go to various places to find what you're looking for.
Okay, great feedback. Thank you.
I will speak to that. So you're talking about some of those numbers were like crunched up on top of each other. So we have developers actually working on that. That's a glitch that we have identified, and it won't look like that when it actually goes live.
Thank you.
I'm kind of piggybacking off of what was just said from a computer standpoint. It's user friendly, but not easy to digest. There's a lot of information being thrown at you at one point. There's more than 3 tabs at the very top. And a lot of them have drop down options that have a lot of different drop down options. So as someone who's going through the application process right now, it's kind of like almost any other website that I'm going to for applications where there's so much information to the point where it's overwhelming. Like the user guides, those are very helpful. And like I said, I do think it's user friendly. I just think that it's a lot of information at every time you turn. There's no point where it's just like, here's maybe a few options. It's everything thrown at you at once.
Yes.
I also think that there's some like places where you don't need to have so many options for clicking. Like when you go to this page, I was first trying to figure out where like to click to go to the actual like quiz. And like my first idea was like right here or right here, but it was like all down there. And then once you click, there are more options. Like it makes you click twice sometimes to actually do what like you're trying to do. So I feel like I guess that what they're saying is that sometimes there are like too many steps to get where you want to go, to get where you want to get.
Okay.
So, and also there's some places where there's a lot of information. I think that's great and it is well organized. But like right here or next, like in this area, I don't feel like that much writing is necessary because it's overwhelming. You don't want to read all of that. Maybe like a full sentence, that'd be great, but a shorter sentence. And then there are other places where you do need a lot of information, but just for those places instead of having information in every single section.
Okay. Okay, so a little bit less information, more quick information.
Yes.
And it's a little bit confusing on those bubble options where to click.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Yes.
I was pretty much going to say the same thing. I feel like there are more direct ways to link things on the homepage. And also, I feel like on the sifting through careers, like it kind of confused me, like what I was supposed to click on next. Like, were they connected? Was each thing separate? I was just a little confused. They were kind of on top of each other.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
I'd first like to start off by saying I commend you for doing this. I'll be like really nervous asking a bunch of teenagers what they don't like about your website. But
3 teenagers,
yeah,
what they don't like.
the only thing I would fix is whenever like on the phone, when you press on like the drop down menu in the top right corner, you have to like press it again to get the drop down to go away to look at the information. So like I would like press on it and then well, it went away. I
know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. So then like instead of like having to press on it again to get the drop down to go up, maybe just make it like an automatic, like you press on it and then after you press on what you're looking for, like the drop down menu goes away.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And then there were some more thoughts over here. Yes.
I was like looking through like the majors section and I felt like the information was really helpful for like some majors, but then like more like STEM focused majors, all of it just said like data not available for basically every school, which like I'm sure like that's obviously something you're working on, but like I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of information, kind of like what they said over there. There's a lot of information, but right now it's not necessarily like the information I need. Like it has stuff about like loans, but then it doesn't have like completion data or like the salary data, like the stuff that I feel like personally would be more relevant for me. So I feel like it might be more important to prioritize those things. I don't know. I don't really care about like the average loan percentage right now compared to like, oh, how much money will I make if I go into this major or this career?
So there's a great backstory to that. So in 2021, the Kentucky General Assembly passed a law. It was called the Students' Right to Know Act. And it basically outlined that Kentucky have a website that shows things like average loan amount. So that's why those are in there.
Okay.
But to your point about not every school or every major is available, that's because a lot of times that data will be limited. Or so one of the rules that KY Stats works under is like if a major at a school has less than 10 people in it, we protect that information. So it's protecting the information of the student. Because, you know, if there's only 5 people in a major and you know all 5 of those people, it's easy to identify.
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of times we have redacted that information so it's not available. But we are really working to get some of the data from the private schools integrated into the site. It's just not there right now, but we're hoping by the time we launch it will be.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yes.
And kind of going off of that, I think like a more filter features would be a little bit more helpful because like when you're going through like a lot of the majors and your apprenticeship options, there's a lot of information. However, it's not, you have to sift through the information to get to what you actually care about. And for a lot of students, it's like one of those, I want to take a glance and see like all my options in a grand scheme of things. So I think being able to really target each aspect that a student's looking for would be really helpful.
Can you give me some examples of what are some of the things that you would be looking for?
Like I think like one of the first things to highlight would be your costs, location. The map feature is really helpful, seeing like distance from home. But really pushing all of that to the forefront. Definitely highlighting whether it's a bachelor's or a master's or a program or a certificate.
highlighting that because it's like in a smaller print, so it's harder to, it's not the first thing you see. So you could be looking at something that's actually a master's program when you're really just looking at your bachelor's, for instance.
Thank you. Good feedback. Anybody else have anything? Yes.
This isn't more of like something that I had like trouble with on the website, but Peter and I do think we discovered a bug possibly. Just whenever we were going to some of the majors, especially the private schools, there are like 5 of one major and they don't have like specifications on them. So we did I think it was like computational science or something like that, and it came up with 5 options for Bellarmine University, but they were all the exact same. And then there were no other schools with it. So I don't know if that was a bug. I don't know if that was meant to
I
happen.
think there's just some
It
duplicative
looked like
information in the data.
It looked like duplicates, yes.
Abby and I found like 20 accounting majors or
Yes.
something.
For the same school.
It seemed like a pretty easy thing. It wasn't as though there were like differences between them. They clearly were different.
Yeah, yeah.
It was
Okay.
not, it's not a huge.
Definitely take a look at that. Thank you.
This, and it gives you what you want.
So you've all given me good feedback on navigation. You've told me about some of the things that you have found missing in what we looked at. Is there anything else that you feel like is missing? It sounds to me like a lot of overwhelmedness, but is there anything missing? Yes.
I will say, just straight off being honest, if I were a student, I would be like, okay, why would I be encouraged to look at this app instead of going to Google? So, and I think it would be good if you were to highlight those specific things that are unique to the data set, that research that you can't find anywhere online, and then maybe add like a read more option where it would be more like a blog structure, where then you would get to the heavy hitter of all of the information, so that then people can have a lot of more time to digest it through reading. But then on the forefront, like some people said, really highlighting the main things that make the app unique. First off, in a way that is concise and people can access easily.
So I have just real quick, I'm sorry, a comment to build on that is, so when you talk about a blog, would you be more interested in seeing like several paragraphs of text, or would you rather see a video of somebody maybe talking about what it's like to actually work in a specific career? Like, which one of those would you be more likely to spend the time to read or watch?
Well, I think you can implement both in a blog site with a little video, but I would, if it was a career I was interested in, I would take the time to read it. Just because I know, okay, this is tailored exactly to the path that I want to take. And I think having the time to do that is important, just in career building, knowing that you have to research in a blog sort of way.
Perfect. Lisa, I think you had something.
Yes, I do want to say I really appreciate the fact that we don't have to create an account to use these resources. That's something that makes it different, I guess, from the other websites.
Good.
So do highlight that. Like she was saying, like when you're highlighting
No
special
password.
features. Yes, no passwords, no account, no need to create anything. It's just out there. Because as we're applying for college and stuff, everybody needs you to create an account and do this and that. But this is something that makes it special. The fact that it's just out there and you can just access it.
Okay, we hadn't heard that before. Usually it's, why can't I save, some of the information that I find? So it's really good to know that you'd prefer it not to have a account attached to it.
I think like a lot of the data too, like what we were saying about the majors and stuff, is there's a lot of detail specifics for each university. But I think also having like your majors page, like just highlight a major in general and like that field and what it looks like specifically in Kentucky, and then breaking down into colleges and the different opportunities within those different programs. Because I think definitely a lot of students know, okay, I want to go in this general direction, but then they're further along the process when they're starting to think, okay, like logistically, how am I going to do this? How am I going to get through college? And like that seems like a little bit further down the line in like the thinking process. So I think it's definitely a little bit reversed as far as like what information they're looking for.
Excellent. Great. Preston.
I will greatly speak to that. So I was personally, I'm interested in kind of seeking a career in like engineering. So when I go to majors, I would go to engineering, like general, and it's kind of very specific. Like say I went to civil engineering general, but there's also civil engineering technology / technicians, which are two similar career fields, but have very different results, with civil engineering only having 3 universities, which another thing I was kind of concerned about. Does civil engineering really only have 3 universities in the state of Kentucky where you can get a major in that? As well as the civil engineering technologies, which was different. So I think just kind of making, maybe I just didn't see it, but going broad, starting broad and then narrowing it down over time would help.
Don't know if this was there because I couldn't find it, but what would really be cool is to have a college quiz. Maybe that was under career quizzes and I couldn't see it, but if you do have a find your college quiz, then maybe putting that in the forefront, because a lot of students don't know what colleges would be a good fit for them. They just have an idea in their head of where they want to go. So that would be a good thing.
Okay, to help you narrow it down.
So it is kind of hidden, but there is another section outside of the career quizzes that is, we call it Test Your Career College Knowledge. It's in the resources section, but it's more of like, there's, I think, 3 or 4 different quizzes just about the site overall. So you can kind of say, you know, it helps you kind of gauge what you've learned throughout the site, but it is kind of hidden, so you might have missed it.
But you're looking for something to help kind of narrow it down.
Specific
Like
to
I would say, like you would say, like, I want to go to a school that's a public university or that is a large university or suburban or urban or rural kind of thing.
Yeah, just maybe more of a direct way to do that.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Yes.
I'm not sure how you guys could implement this in the website, but something that I think is important to have in mind is that to put yourself in somebody's in a parent's shoes and like a mom or a dad's shoes. If my mom wants to help me find a career or wants me to go to college, but she has no idea about how it works and what I need to go to college, I feel like it'd be really great if you somewhere in the app could talk about it, like the requirements I need to go to college and like the different, like, oh, what's different? What are the difference between a private and a public university or college? So I don't know. I feel like a more like broad like information about what college is and how it will feel for the students in case that you put that you're a mother or father. I feel that'd be really great because a lot of the website is straightforward. Like you have already an idea built about college and you have a knowledge about it, but some people may not know. Maybe students who are trying to look for a career, they don't really like know much about it and that's why they need help. So maybe just like a more like general idea about what college is and what you can expect, and just like it was commented before, like maybe like what a college is and not just like the career choices, but what can you like expect from it.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
So I feel like personally, I'm kind of the type of person where I'm less interested in like going into a specific like industry or job and more like interested in like I don't know, like physics, like a certain topic, for example. So I feel like it would be really helpful, especially for more specific majors. Like if you wanted to go into like, I don't know, biochemistry and molecular science, like specific stuff like that. I see that you have like the percentage of graduates employed in Kentucky. I feel like really helpful information to have alongside that is like where these graduates are working and what jobs are available for like these really more specific majors. So like that I could see what opportunities are available for me in state. Because I feel like, especially with STEM fields, sometimes it feels like we have to leave the state in order to actually find jobs related to our interests.
So knowing where those jobs are and working in those jobs and what industries are hiring folks in those jobs, maybe even specific companies.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
And to elaborate on that, to make sure it wasn't lost in translation, we would do that according to major. So like when you have a very specific major, then you would move on to what jobs are in that major that are in Kentucky. Yeah, I was just elaborating.
One quick question along that line is, so if you'll notice in the careers and industry or industries and occupations section, we're really trying to figure out like what are the best words for that. So it sounds like you all kind of are leaning towards like thinking about it in terms of majors before you think about it in terms of a career. Does that seem accurate?
Because I feel like at our stage right now, like especially with so many like fields kind of being interdisciplinary, we don't necessarily know like what industry would hire what majors and like what goes into where. Like we might not know what industry we're interested in because we don't know what options are truly available to us.
Okay.
If we want to go into like physics, for example.
Okay. So your preference would be to focus more on a major rather than a career, right?
And see what careers can branch off of that major.
Okay.
I feel like adding that information into your majors category too would be really helpful. Like kind of tying in like jobs that would be specific for each major. And like they mentioned earlier, like incorporating other industries and other jobs in the state that would be willing to hire within their major in their field.
All right, just really quickly, we got to wrap up here, but by quick show of hands here, and I'll go back and watch the recording so I can count the number of hands afterwards. But when we're trying to advertise for Futurity, once it is finished, I want to look up there at those platforms here and try to figure out like where you would be likely to engage and get the information. So if we were to advertise on social media, would you engage with it on social media? So raise your hand if that is a yes for you.
And which platform would it be?
Okay, so are you Instagram people? Okay, all right. Are you Facebook people? Oh, a couple people. Thank you. Twitter people. Okay. What am I missing? Like we can't Snapchat you. Sorry, it's not going to happen. TikTok. Oh yeah, TikTok people. Oh, you okay? All right. How about a Google search? Lots of Google searchers. Okay. What if we have posters hanging up in your school? Would you engage with that? Excellent. What if a targeted YouTube ad? So you go to watch something and you see an ad. Would you skip over the ad or would you like listen to it and use it?
I'd skip.
Skip. Okay, me too. All right. Any other ways of getting a hold of you and saying, try this out? This might be something that would be interesting to you. India.
This might be putting some more like work onto school counselors. However, I feel like whenever I'm going to talk to my counselor, especially at the Craft Academy, we have just a solely college counselor. I feel like getting that resource from them and them showing me how to navigate it if I had never navigated it myself, that's where I would find it, just because it's in its future, or it's in its beginning stages. I feel like it's not going to be as relevant on a Google search, but if you're getting this website source directly from an educator who's helping you on your college search, maybe that would be the best way, at least to reach me and my peers that utilize that said counselor.
Awesome. Thank you. We will let Mr. Reeves know.
Sounds good.
Just a closing thought for me. I want to kind of go on a tangent with what Sophia brought up. Selfishly, as Commissioner of Education in Kentucky, we want our best and brightest to come back home. I think one of the things that we need to really focus on is place-based education. Well, what's available? I think Sophia touched on that a little bit, and I think that was one of her points, is if we want our best and brightest to come back home, we have to let them know what's available in your interest fields. So I think one of the things that I would really encourage, and again, it's a little selfish because I want to see everybody come back. If you don't come back to your local place, I'm very big on people going back home. I really am. I'm a home person. I'm a mama's boy. I always will be. That's just the way it is. But if you can't have that opportunity at home, at least come back to Kentucky. And we want you to lead change in this state, and the people around this have that opportunity. We want our best and the brightest to come back. So in order to get them to come back, we need to educate you. This is what's available in your interests. This is what you can see in your community. I think a lot of our school systems do a good job of getting internships, job shadowing, but there's a lot of opportunities that may be in your back door that you don't even know about. as far as chemistry, physics, or business or other areas. So my suggestion would be is to really focus in on these are the opportunities that we have in Kentucky. And then that way we can do those type of searches too.
Feedback. Thank you so much. So we have one last slide, and that is just kind of an exit survey. So you can take this, scan the tag. You don't have to do it right now if you don't want to. But there's probably 7 questions that will just provide us some very specific feedback on what we can do. And hopefully KDE will invite us back to show you where we end up after we go back to the drawing board and implement some of your great suggestions. Trinity, did you have any closing thoughts?
I do not have any closing thoughts, but thank you very much. We very much appreciate your feedback. Like I said, we like to feel like we're really young, but you all really are the voice that we need and to tell us how you're going to use this tool and what will make it effective for you, because it really is for you. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you to Jessica and Trinity and to everyone here who helped participate and offer feedback. And we can make sure you all have that link to provide feedback. Now we're going to move very quickly into our next presenter, but it maybe perhaps relates to some of our conversation and thinking about our future careers and paths and opportunities. So we have with us Beth Engel, Division Director for Technical Schools and Continuous Improvement here at KDE. So works specifically in our Office of Career and Technical Education. And some of our returning members may recognize Beth from our presentation last year, but we're excited to have her back and also for our new members to learn more about CTE. And so Beth, now we'll take it away.
Talk to you today about opportunities that you have with career and technical education. Now, I'm going to give you a handout, and I do not want you to turn it over. Okay, so resist temptation and do not turn it over. I have some questions to ask you. You can complete that 7-question survey if you want to while I'm handing this out, or you can wait to do that. I'm very excited that I get to kind of piggyback off of their presentation where they were talking to you about careers, how to explore your options, the new website, Futurity, if I'm saying that correctly. We're going to look at, hopefully, some opportunities that you already know exist, but maybe you don't. Now, while I'm handing this out, I do have a question. This is the business and marketing teacher in me, because that's what I did for 14 years. The group before me did, they showed you their website, they got your feedback, they're going to use it to improve their site, but we have a marketing term for that. Does anybody know what that is? When we go to our intended audience or our customers and we let them test our product and give us feedback. Focus group. What is it called? Focus group? It is a focus group. So you were serving as a focus group. Very good. And we were conducting marketing research. So that is the term, marketing research. Okay. We're going to start with the vision test. That's what this handout is. There is no incorrect answer. It is an ink blot. You can go ahead and turn it up. Just look at that for a couple of minutes. And there's no incorrect answer. And then on the back of the piece of paper of the handout, you can write what you think you see. There's no wrong answer. What do you see in those random ink blots?
Like what the shape is or what you see in?
What do you see or the shape? It's up to you. How do you interpret it? No wrong answer. All right, go ahead and turn it over. Write down your first impression. You don't have to think too hard on this. He's pretty confident that they have the correct answer. What is it? What's an ink blot?
It's a dead tree.
It's a dead tree. It could be a dead tree. If it's a dead tree to you, it's a dead tree. I like that answer. What else do we see?
Some pandas.
Pandas, oh my gosh, I love pandas. And there was a zoo somewhere that just had panda twins. I wish I could remember which one, but they are the cutest little animals ever. Anybody else? I'll take one more. What you got?
I also see a panda who's a little mad and a melting dog.
You see what? I'm sorry?
A melting dog.
Oh, a dog. Okay, very nice. Well, those are all great answers. At the end of the presentation, I will tell you what is in the ink blot. But while you have it turned over to the side that you were writing on, or the blank side, can you go ahead and just write down what are some of your future career goals? Just very briefly, what are your future career goals? Maybe you know exactly what you want to be. Maybe you have an idea of what you like. Maybe there's 2 or 3 things you're like, well, maybe I would want to go down this path or that path. So just a couple of ideas. When I was in high school, I was going to be an accountant. I got to college, and guess what I decided I did not want to be?
An accountant.
An accountant. And I loved my accounting classes in high school. But I never thought I was going to be a teacher, ever. My mother was a teacher, and I was not going to be a teacher. Guess what I ended up being? Teacher. And I love every minute of it. So sometimes we have career plans that they don't go quite as we expected when we first start making them, but that's okay. All right, anyone want to share? Just a couple people. What are your future career plans? What are you thinking about? What are you thinking about?
I'm thinking about forensics.
Forensics. What do you think about?
Astronomical physicist.
Oh, well, okay. Astronomical physicist. That is a big major. What are you thinking about?
Thinking about like a finance major.
Finance major. I love finance. What do you think?
Finance or economics.
Finance or economics. Oh, I love finance and economics so much.
Public health and epidemiology.
Public health and epidemiology. So that is wonderful. Last question for right now. What are you doing right now in your school today to help you prepare for those future career goals? What are you doing right now? You are serving on the Commissioner Student Advisory Council. We're getting some leadership skills, right? We are networking. We're meeting other people. We're getting ideas. But what else are you doing? Excuse me. Sorry. I move around a lot. I apologize. I can stand still if you need me to. I know we are all doing great things. I'm going to call on some people I haven't spoken to yet. What are you doing?
I feel like I'm involved in like several different clubs and activities related to what I want to do in college.
That's wonderful. That is a great way to prepare. And what are you doing?
I'm interning with our Commonwealth attorney in Grace County.
That is wonderful. And what are you doing?
I'm leading an international internship program at my high school.
That is awesome. There are some great things going on. And what are you doing?
I'm shadowing my school's athletic trainer. It's like I help tape people.
That's wonderful. That is a lot of fun. I had to get taped every day before practice when I played basketball. Because none of you could have guessed that I played basketball, right? Anyone want to guess how tall I am? Because that is always a question I get. A lot of times I start with that. Yes, I'm, such and such tall and I play basketball. What do y'all think? How tall?
6'2".
6'1". Oh my gosh, perfect answer. All right, can I see the next slide, please?
The next one.
Yes, the next one. I'm sorry. I guess I should have gone to the next one. I got them ahead of myself. Today, I'm going to talk to you about career technical education and how that can help you achieve those future career goals that you have. So career and education or career and technical education is education that combines that core academic knowledge that you're getting in your classes with technical and employability skills that can give you a competitive advantage for your future. Does anybody here participate in career and technical education in their school? Which classes?
Healthcare.
Healthcare.
Business classes.
Business classes.
Teaching and learning pathway.
Teaching and learning. Anybody else? Which one?
Business.
Business. Well, you heard I was a business teacher, so I love business and marketing education, but I love all of our career and technical education. So just the big thing about CTE is it focuses on those skills that you're going to need in the future to be successful, and that's going to help you with your post-secondary success. Studies continually show that students who participate in CTE do better than the peers who don't. They complete college at a higher rate. And they also typically earn more on average than students who do not concentrate in CTE. Next slide, please. All right. So according to this, I've recently looked these up. High school graduates that completed a CTE pathway are now employed at a 4% higher rate than as compared to all of those high school graduates. So that is a pretty good number. Next slide, please. You have to excuse me, I have a cold, so a little bit of a dry throat. CTE completers. Anybody know where the CTE completer is? What do we mean by completing? What does that mean?
Like they're finishing their pathway off with either like any of those like completion assessments, like their COP.
Absolutely, completing your pathway, taking that 4-course sequence, completing it with your valid industry cert or your EOP. Those CTE completers, students who complete that pathway while they're in high school, have a 12% higher median wage as compared to all high school graduates. Is that a significant number? 12% higher is a huge number, and that is consistent over time as we look at the data and the studies. Okay, next slide, please. So career and technical education, I'm going to shorten this a little bit for you. As we talked about before, it complements those academic core classes that you're taking. It enhances those skills that you're learning in your academic core classes by giving you additional technical skills for a specific career pathway. We're giving you those employability skills that are required no matter what field you're going into. This all works together, like we said, to give you that competitive advantage, that you're going to be employed at a higher rate or statistically, that you're going to statistically make more money because you're a CTE completer, that you're going to statistically graduate university at a higher rate than those who don't. So it has lots of advantages for you as a high school student. Next slide, please. We're going to look at median income. I'm just going to let you look at that slide for a second. But here is the data collected. It is collected by the Council on Post-Secondary Education. It's also collected by the U.S. Department of Education, the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I verified the data in 3 different places before we put it up on the screen. So high school graduates, after 8 years of being in the workforce, they make around $29,400. If you get a certificate or a diploma, then, and that is a couple like a certificate beyond high school, around $37,000. Associate degree. Now that is a college degree. How many years does an associate degree typically take? 2 years. There you go. Around $38,000 annually. An on-time bachelor's degree. On-time means someone who went straight into college, graduated within 4 to 4.5 years, about $42,000. Now, before we go to the next slide, we're going to talk about that skilled labor median wage. What do y'all think it is? What do you think?
People who completed CTE.
Someone who completed it, how much do you think they make on average after about 8 years of being in the workforce?
I don't know.
No. Do you think it's higher than that 41,900? It is. It is higher. We can go to the next slide, everybody. It is around $48,934. Now that is just 8 years out of school. So that is a pretty significant number. Okay, next slide, please. There are benefits to CTE. We always say college is not your first step to a career. Actually, high school is. What you're doing right now matters, and you are doing great things. You told me about the great things that you're doing, preparing for your future. CTE is another path to prepare for your future, to give you those skills that you're going to need to be successful. CTE education that lays that foundation for college to career or career to college. And it benefits all students. So I highly encourage everyone to explore the CTE opportunities that are available to them. Can I get the next slide, please? All right, we have 13 different CTE programs in the state of Kentucky. And within those 13 programs, there are 144 pathways. Now we're going to write these down. On the back of your handout, and I'm gonna have to read them so I don't forget them. We're gonna write them down. We have agriculture education. And you can abbreviate. We have business and marketing. Computer science. Instruction technology. Engineering. I think I heard someone say that they're interested in civil engineering. Family and Consumer Sciences, or FCS. Health science, someone said they were in health science. JROTC. Law and public safety. Manufacturing technology. Yeah. Media arts. Teaching and learning. Someone was in the teaching and learning pathway. And then transportation. Now, looking at those programs that we have available in the state of Kentucky, that doesn't mean that it's going to be offered at every single school, because not every school can offer 13 pathways or 13 programs and 144 pathways. But looking at those programs that could be available to you, do you see any program that might help you prepare for your future career goals? Very much. What is my next slide, Meredith? I'm sorry. Is it my question slide? New opportunities. Oh, okay. Well, let's look at new opportunities then. There are some new opportunities in our pathways for anyone who might be interested. We have created a supply chain management pathway that is one of the top growing industries in all of the United States. So after COVID-19 happened, anybody remember that happening? We had supply chain breakdown that we are still seeing the effects of today. But during that time, business became very aware of the weaknesses in that supply chain. And so now supply chain is your top growing career pathway. EKU was the first in the state to offer this as a major. NKU also offers it as a major. Working together with both of those universities, OCTE with the Kentucky Department of Ed created the supply chain management pathway to help prepare students who want to go into that career path. I actually have a former student who took my business and marketing classes, and then he interned at Walmart Distribution Center when he was in college, and he accidentally found this path or this major at EKU. It was kind of new, right? And he was offered a massive job before he ever graduated college. And he is now very successful with Walmart, working with their supply chain management team. So it's very, very happy for him. We're also looking at putting in generative AI courses and a pathway. Anybody hear of AI? No? Well, let me tell you, no, everyone's heard of AI. Everyone's using AI. So we're looking at.
I got to stop and ask, if you don't mind, Dr. Engel, how many of you use AI on a regular basis? Show of hands. Quick sample. Alan, how do you use AI?
I use it to study, and I use it to I also use it on Instagram, Snapchat. And,
okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Others? Who else uses AI? Yes.
I use it to help me find drawing references.
Great. Daniel?
For like studying and just learning different things.
I actually used it the other day to come up with different articles, to write articles as something that you'll see on the ballot. I'm not going to turn this into an Amendment 2 discussion, but to give an article that is pro Amendment 2, but also resources that was anti Amendment 2, just to see what AI would generate. And I was really impressed with what it gave you more resources. So, I tell students all the time, I told teachers, I said, if I were a teacher now, I would use AI to do lesson plans, but you're still the content specialist. Does that lesson plan make sense? If you want a more interactive lesson plan, how do you change that to be more interactive? Even to write a speech, I'm not saying use an AI to do the speech for you, but man, it could give you some great ideas. So how do we use that responsibly, but also be good evaluators of what's available? So again, I'm learning more and more about AI. You folks are probably better at this than I am, but there's so many uses I think that could make us better as far as evaluating the information that we have. So anyway, I wanted to see how many of you folks use AI on a regular basis, or was willing to admit it anyway. So just I thought that was interesting. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And we're using it in general public because we have open AI, but we also have industry specific AI that has been used now actually for 10 or more years. For example, supply chain management. There's industry specific AI that helps supply chain managers look at their current logistics within that company, identify weaknesses and improvements, and then give plans on how to address each one of those and make it even more effective and efficient. So that's the type of AI that we're looking at getting incorporated into our career pathways, is that industry specific AI. Open AI is wonderful too. And of course, we've got data science and informatics. Now I'm running a little short on time. One of the things that we were going to do was look at your specific career objectives and identify the actual career or CTE program that could help you prepare for that. But I encourage you to talk to your school counselors, your teachers, CTE coordinators at your school, and see if there's a CTE pathway offered at your school that can help you prepare for your specific pathways or career goals. Now, turn that ink blot over if you don't mind, and I'm going to show you what the ink blot is. It is a cowboy on a horse. Once you see it, you'll see it. Cowboy on a horse. Now, the reason I had you look at the ink blot is because sometimes we have goals, we have plans, but we can't always see the big picture on how to get there. CTE is a path to show you a picture of how to get to and achieve your goals. Now, what questions do you have for me? Yes, ma'am.
Would you say CTE is more, I guess, prosperous long-term compared to AP classes?
That is a very difficult question because I would say that AP classes are very important and they prepare you for critical thinking and problem solving and being, they give you all kinds of skill sets. One data point I forgot to share with you, and I'm glad you brought that up. I looked up how many unfilled jobs there are in America right now. Does anyone have a guess nationwide how many unfilled jobs we have currently in the United States? How many?
At least 20,000.
At least, it's at least 20,000. That is the best way to frame an answer because you can't be wrong. It is at least 20,000, right? No matter what it is, that's what it is. Anybody else? I know I'm running out of time. It's 8 million. 8 million. 6.5 million of those unfilled jobs require technical skill training. Technical skill training comes from CTE. CTE cannot stand alone. It needs those AP classes to help with that academic core. AP cannot stand alone because that academic core needs merged with those technical skills. So you really need both of them, honestly.
Add to that, Louisa, one of the things I regret about my high school career is I took AP World Civ, AP Calculus, AP US History, AP Biology, AP, every AP that was possible, I took that. But I couldn't find place in my schedule for small engines. I would love to have taken small engines. Well, the whole drive, and many of you in this room are probably in this, I wanted to be valedictorian. And the policies at my school was you had to take all the AP classes in order to move into and be valedictorian. So what happened was I took some classes I wasn't particularly interested in AP. It didn't help me. Like, I really didn't need AP World Civ, although I enjoyed it. But looking back on it, I would love to have traded that out for maybe small engines or even a business pathway. And again, how do you balance that pathway versus taking the AP? I think that's what you got to, what's your career pathway, then go from there. I would much rather see a student happy than to be valedictorian. I'd much rather students feel like their high school career has been relevant than to say, you know what, nobody knows who the valedictorian of Sheldon Clark High School was in 1992, but they do know that I'm in education. So if I could have catered that better, I think that's something I would like to go back and change.
And an additional point is most of our CTE classes are also dual credit courses. So they also help you to earn that college credit. We also have articulated end of program assessments. And that just means that if you take that end of program assessment, like the AP test, and you pass it, then you have college credit at specific universities. If you enroll in that university, then you get college credit for that assessment. Great question. Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering, does each school get to choose what programs they want, or?
That is a great question. And the answer is yes and kind of. So here's best practice is that each school, either their SBDM or the CTE's advisory, different committees, will do what's called a viability study. So they will go to the business and industry within that region and say, hey, what is your greatest need? What do our students need to be preparing for? And they will get that feedback. Then they will go to the students and do that student interest survey. What are you interested in? And so taking all that data is how they will make their choice of what to offer in their individual school. Yes, ma'am.
Bouncing off like the dual credit AP thing or taking the CTE classes, I think that's something I was struggling with last year. I was like, well, AP like looks better, like, you know what I mean? Like trying to build like your resume and like look like a put together student. But I think finding your happy medium will help. Like for me personally, I made it to where the only classes I'm taking in school are AP classes. So like I get to school at 9 and I leave at 11 and I only have an AP class when I'm at school. But the rest of the classes are like CTE classes that will like transfer credits to my college like transcript. So like make it to where like you're making your time like worth it, but also put what you need to do first.
Yes, ma'am.
My class doesn't offer APs whatsoever, so I'm kind of in the dark about what exactly how is it better than dual credit?
Like, how is AP better than dual credit?
Yeah,
I think that's
I can answer some questions about this. For those that, if you go through an AP program, the curriculum, let's say AP Calculus, it's supposed to be much more difficult than Calc 1. Okay, it's intense. If you take AP US History, it's going to be much more difficult than your first level. It should be much more difficult than your first social studies class in college. But what has to happen in order for you to get credit, you have to pass the AP exam. And different colleges have different requirements. Some colleges may give you credit for a 3. You got a range of 1 to 5. If you get a 3, you may get credit in some universities, whereas if you get a 4 or 5, they may even give you an A on your transcript for that particular. And I'm going to go back to AP Calculus. That's what I taught. On the other hand, if you take dual credit, it's just like it's almost like you're sitting in a class at college, and all you have to do is pass the class. So you don't have to pass the test at the end. So the dual credit, and there's dual credit in both career technical pathways and then also in other pathways too. Like if you want to go into, let's say teaching, and we're trying our best to make teaching a career technical pathway. But if you wanted to teach, let's say science, you could take AP physics and get credit, and that would probably translate over. But sometimes universities will say, you have to take it on campus if it's part of your major. They may take you, like if you're not a social studies major, they may take the social studies credit. But if you want to be a math major, they may require you to take the Calc 1, Calc 2, as opposed to using maybe a lot of times dual credit will transfer, but sometimes the AP classes may not. And it's really good to talk to the advisor on campus, on the college campus of where you want to go, to say, does this articulate? Does this transfer over? And if I pass the AP exam, what do I have to get? But if I take the dual credit, will this transfer to the university? So if you want to go to, let's say, University of Louisville, but you took your credit at maybe Bluegrass Community Technical, I'm 99% sure it's going to transfer, but you always want to check to make sure that your major field will allow that to transfer in and count as part of your major. They may give you credit, but they may not count it as part of your major, if that makes sense. Yeah. So there's two options there.
You can feel free to email me. They have my contact information. They can get back to you. And again, I encourage you to talk to your school counselors, your CTE coordinators, if you are interested in any of the CTE. Okay.
Thank you, Beth, for this presentation and more information. At this time, we are going to take a short break. We're going to take about a 5-minute break to stretch our legs. And so please come back at 11:11, and we look forward to a conversation about chronic absenteeism. All right, everyone, welcome back. And as we're getting settled in, I will go ahead and introduce our next conversation. Our next agenda item is a discussion on chronic absenteeism, and we have Florence Chang and Judy Vandehar from our Office of Continuous Improvement and Support. We also have Jennifer Ginn, our Director of Communications here at KDE, who will be leading us in this conversation about chronic absenteeism.
See everyone again. If you don't remember me, I know some of y'all from last year. I'm Florence Chang. I work in the Office of Continuous Improvement. And we were here last year actually talking about substance use. So it's great to hear your comment earlier, because I will definitely need to get updated on that really important topic. Today, we're talking about chronic absenteeism. And I just want to make sure our two other presenters are going to be able to introduce themselves. So Dr. Vandehar.
Yes, I'm Judy Vandehar. I work in the Division of Student Success and really happy to be.
And Jennifer Ginn, Director of Communications. I work. So we are absolutely living history right now as we're talking about this topic. So go to the next slide. How many of you are familiar with the term chronic absenteeism? Almost everyone. Great. So it is a huge topic right now, nationally and internationally, actually, since the pandemic. And the official definition is missing 10% of school. So in Kentucky, we do this to the minute. So you are going into school and you're getting logged in. They track your attendance by minute. If you have missed 10% for any reason, unexcused, excused, that is considered chronic absenteeism. And you have to be at least enrolled 10 days in a school to be counted in our calculation. So it's different than truancy. If you hear about truancy, truancy is unexcused absences only. So that is the main difference. But chronic absenteeism is super important because it counts all missing instructional minutes. And of course, that's related to learning, which we'll talk about. Next slide.
Just to add to, that's a fluid calculation, because 10%, if you go, let's say you missed 1.5 days after 10 days, yes, you're truant, or you're chronically absent, not truant. There's a difference. But let's say you go to school the next 2 or 3 days, then you're back below that 10%. So it once you get into chronic absenteeism, you're not just stuck there as a classification. It moves back and forth based on the percentage of time that you're in school. So keep that in mind as you go through and hear these.
Yeah, great point. It is definitely something that can change very quickly as you're going through school. Throughout the year, we have 175 days typically. So it averages out, if you're chronically absent after a year, to about 2 days a month, which we talked about in our last year's meeting on this. So about 2 days a month is all it takes to become chronically absent if you are enrolled full-time in Kentucky. The maps up here are looking at the counties. So I know it's a little bit hard to read, but the gist of it is, on the left side is pre-pandemic. So before COVID, we were collecting chronic absenteeism already, and you'll see with the blue counties, those are counties that are defined as having high chronic absenteeism. That's a national definition that comes from Attendance Works. That's defined as 20% or more chronically absent. The darker the blue, the higher the chronic absenteeism. So the big takeaway from this slide is on the left side. We did have chronic absenteeism issues already. Predominantly, a lot of the areas of concern were in the eastern part of Kentucky. As you go to the right and you look at all the counties now, this is a statewide issue. So now we're seeing chronic absenteeism has almost doubled for us as a state. We're at 30%. And you'll see across the state, we have concerns across the entire state. Okay. This slide is showing the data by grade. So the blue line at the bottom is showing pre-pandemic levels. So you'll see kindergarten at the left, all the way to 12th grade at the right. Pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, what you see is in the older grades, so the grades that you all are in, that's where we see our highest chronic absenteeism levels. But if you look at the rate of change between pre and post, what do you all notice when you look at the red numbers? What do you all notice about the rate of change by grade? Any insights? Yes.
Elementary and middle school have really increased in comparison to high school.
Yes. So elementary, we saw really large gains. This is a national epidemic, by the way, something we see nationally. So Kentucky is matching what we see in other states. So yes. And why does that have implications? Can someone else chime in? If we're seeing a lot of absenteeism at kindergarten, first, second, what are the implications? And we'll go to this side.
Sorry. Okay, that's like where you develop like your fundamental skills, like when you're still younger, like how to read, write, like communication skills, and so missing those days is like critical to your future education.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you think about kindergarten, there's that saying, everything I learned in kindergarten, right? You learn how to sit on the carpet and talk to your friends, and then you learn your ABCs and your phonemic skills and numeracy skills. So many things are happening at that initial level. And we also know that you build attendance skills over time. So our youngest students, when you study this pattern over time, unfortunately, one of the things we know is the prediction of future behavior is best predicted by past. And so we are very concerned seeing that attendance patterns right now are showing some concerns at the early ages, because we know those habits and families get set. Next slide. So not only do we see differences by grade level, we see differences by student groups. This is a slide that shows pre and post pandemic. The blue is, the left side is pre, green is post on the right side. And you see in almost every group of students, the chronic absenteeism level has doubled since the pandemic. That's among everybody, even gifted and talented, which is a group we typically are lifting up and not too worried about. That group also has seen some significant increases in chronic absenteeism. But most of all, our homeless, you'll see, has reached 50%, where 50% of students who are homeless are chronically absent. So some major, major concerns with these student groups. Next slide. Okay. And this slide we kind of talked about last year when we touched on this topic, for those of you who are on this, but this is getting at the experience at the school level. So at the school level, what we see is on the left side, very few schools were categorized as having high or extremely high chronic absenteeism. So you'll see very little, 1 out of every 20, right? So that's the left side, the right side of the bar chart. On the other side, the right side, the right chart, what you see is now 3 out of every 4 students are in a school with high or extremely high chronic absenteeism. So in terms of like data and research, if y'all, if anybody's like a data and research nerd, you never see data like this flip. To see this kind of data that 1 out of 20 kids had this experience, and after the pandemic, 3 out of every 4. That's a huge shift in the experiences that we're seeing at the school level. Next slide. This is no surprise related to outcomes. So you see, if you are chronically absent, you're less likely to be academically on grade level compared to your peers. We did look at KSA, so 3rd grade reading scores, absolutely related to those. And then also more likely to drop out. So no surprise in those, the relationship between attendance and outcomes. Next slide. I'm talking a lot, so I want to make sure we get a chance to hear from you all. And then finally, our teachers. So we did talk to teachers last year about the challenge that they are encountering. And so number one, just the sheer number of kids that are missing school is such a challenge at this point. So imagine that you're a teacher in a classroom where your chronic absenteeism level was 16 or 17%, 1 out of every 6, and now it's 1 out of every 3. So in terms of numbers, we're looking at like 115,000 kids pre-pandemic at the state level to almost 200,000. So that number has, the adults didn't double, you know, so the support systems that we need to have in place, we need to be thoughtful because of the sheer numbers of kids that we're serving. Building relationships, of course, is a challenge. You're not there, you know, makes such a big difference to the quality of your relationships. Instructional and intervention continuity, if kids are missing school, a lot of times, what do teachers do? Kids are missing school. They'll sometimes give like online assignments, right? Or you come to school and then you get pulled out into small groups, and then you're not with the rest of your class. So there's kind of a snowball effect. Once you miss school, sometimes you get less in person with your classmates in general. And then instructional approaches. You all probably heard about United We Learn and the importance of vibrant learning experiences and meaningful, relevant instruction. So usually those approaches are hands-on, project-based, for example. That can be really challenging if kids are not in school. So we talked to some focus groups last year where the kids said, I don't get to work in groups because we have too many absences. So the projects they did get, they had to work alone. So it is an absolute challenge for our teachers. Next slide. Okay, so Dr. Vanderhart is going to talk about why are kids missing school.
Thank you, Dr. Chang. So, intuitively know from your experiences and understanding why a lot of kids are missing school. We talk about chronic absence as the biggest problem, but also you understand it's simply a symptom of many other problems, right? So we talk about these contributing factors kind of in these buckets, but as you see, clearly they overlap, right? So if I'm struggling with anxiety, which has significantly increased nationwide since COVID, you know, I might be struggling with relationships, academics. And so also thinking about like the bucket, for example, of barriers, transportation, food insecurity, some of those things, you know, these are very much rooted in wider social and economic forces, right? And then some of these other things like suspension or, you know, unwelcoming climate in schools, a lot of these things, you know, we have in schools, we have some more agency over to impact. So the next slide, please. We're going to skip this because some of you all have helped us think through this last time around why. We really want to hear your feedback about, you know, and your creative ideas about what you would do. And before I get into that, I want to talk about this tiered approach. So with any major kind of issue, you know, in the medical world and in schools, like we think about it in terms of taking a tiered approach, right? So the universal tier, tier 1, we call it, is what can we do to impact everybody, right? What is kind of something we can do in the world of prevention, things to prevent. So for example, with this and with a lot of outcomes or things we care about, this example is looking at attendance, obviously, but tier 1 would be what can we do at a school level to increase a sense of belonging, to increase connectedness, to have a, you know, strong relationships, a warm climate, a good culture of how we do things, right? That would be like a tier 1 prevention, kind of what we would call prevention, right? So that's for everyone. And then there's going to be those students in tier 2. So that's usually, you know, 10 to 20% of students
that are going to need some more, right? So we need to do some more kind of removing extra barriers. And then you have the tier 3, which usually touches 3 to 5% of kids that have very intense. So we have thousands of kids actually that go missing in Kentucky. So they're not just absent, they're literally missing, right? So we don't often talk about that. We have kids who are very transient, we have one of the highest foster care populations. So they're moving place to place to place, right? We have so big, huge homeless population also. So those are kids with extreme attendance issues. And they are just at the whim of, you know, a lot of different forces in their life. So what needs to be in place to address that level, right? So thinking about everything in that tiered model, it can be very helpful. And it's the responsibility of all of us at every level of the system, right? At the state level, the federal level, the school level, the district level. So there's all these approaches, and I apologize if I am talking kind of fast. All right, so one example I just want to share for tier 1, if you can go to the next slide, is sources of strength. Does anyone in here have sources of strength in their school? Okay, awesome. So then you all are familiar, hopefully, if your school has been able to implement it with some fidelity, understand the kind of sources of strength, the wheel. So the model for sources of strength is you have caring, connected adult advisors who work with peer leaders. So you have students that represent kind of every group in the school. And then together they create campaigns, right? And these campaigns are to promote social norming of health. It really was developed as an upstream model of suicide prevention, but it also helps in so many other things. It helps kind of build a culture where peers, students help other students when they're struggling, connect them with trusted adults. It helps normalize the emotions that we all have as human beings: anger, fear, sadness, anxiety, worry. So it helps normalize that we all have emotions, and it really lifts up that we all have access to some sources of strength in our life that we can connect to get us through those times. And so that's kind of a very positive, powerful evidence base, because it's have very strong evidence behind it now. Tier 1 strategy. So the next slide here is just looking at the wheel, right? So these are all of the elements, right? Includes things we don't typically talk about in schools, which is, okay, we have trusted adults, positive friends, physical and mental health. We talk about those as the same one coin, two sides. Generosity, spirituality, right? So a lot of mentors, we all have access to some of these strengths. And so it's normalizing, it's lifting those up. And I'd be curious if we had time, you know, after this talk on attendance, for those of you that are in schools that have sources as how that is affected or not affected you, right? So the next slide here, we want to get your insight about if you were a principal right now in a school, and Dr. Chang just described the scope of this problem. Your goal is to improve attendance. What 2 or 3 strategies or policy changes would you implement right now? So if you can talk to your shoulder partner and kind of talk about some specific strategies or policy changes you would make to improve based on what you know in your own experience about why attendance is a problem.
Allow me to add a little bit of clarification. A lot of times we'll use 2 different terms. We'll say chronic absenteeism versus truancy. Chronic absenteeism is you miss for any reason, whether you have a parent note, doctor's note, you just miss a day. If you're not in the classroom, then that is an absence. So chronic absenteeism is based on if you're not in the classroom, 10%, if you're out of the classroom 10% of the time. Now, a lot of times you'll hear from a legal side the term truancy. If you're absent 3 days without an excused absence, then you are labeled as truant as a student. And then if you miss 3 more, then you're habitually truant. So if you over 6 absences, then you're habitually truant, 6 unexcused absences. So again, either way, what you're getting ready to talk about is how do you get students back into the classroom and what type of incentives you'd like to do. But keep in mind when you talk about chronic absenteeism, it's you miss for any purpose, no matter what. Does that make sense on it? You have a question? Well, now that's more than likely if you're with you're with a school or a team, that's still part of being in school. It's not an absence. If it's a field trip, it's not an absence. And also too, there's education enhancement opportunities that you can apply for. That's not an absence. If it's something where you're considered as an absent from school during that day, a school activity would be okay. So you would not be absent. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
All right. Other questions?
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're coming late, you're leaving early, doctor's appointments, anything.
And again, we really want to hear from you because we are doing a chronic absenteeism campaign here, and there's some information about that, about awareness, and just letting students know that we missed you. That seat was empty. We missed you, and that's part of relationships. But if you were a principal or of a school, what would you do to improve student attendance? Strategies, policy changes. What do you think would make a difference? Sometimes we tell you what we want to do. Now we want to hear from you. Make sense? All right. Within your 2 or 3 there at your table, let's hear it. Started.
Some of you all said you have some ideas you are excited to share. Maybe you didn't use the word excited, but we're very anxious to hear your ideas. And I'll be taking notes from the recordings. Anyone wants to start off? Any strategies or changes? Yeah.
So something that we have at my school, it's called Freshman Mentor Program. And it's basically a 30-minute like period of time every day where juniors and seniors like work with the freshmen. And we do like lesson days, game days, study days. So we're like a really good tool for them to turn to, and it's like a good resource for them to have. Because I know a lot of times like kids don't feel comfortable like going to a teacher for help, but it's like a safe space for them to like express any like problems or issues they have. And we've had that for like a really long time. So it's something that's worked really well in my school.
That's a beautiful idea. I really love that. I've not heard that.
Builds relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Builds relationships.
Yeah. Make the students sign a learning contract binding them to attending school every day.
And then
Yeah, just like GSP. Make them go to school every day.
So I actually like did almost like a 14-hour thing on this. So yeah, I think the biggest thing that I took away from that, especially, or at least one of the ideas, was of course connection building overall. I think with that, and this really does depend on districts, but I think creating like almost like a district-wide event, whether it's an arts exhibition to just sports or just any general activities for students to get together as an almost incentive and motivating factor to get together. But then also having like a resource counselor, for instance, there at the same time, encouraging parents, students, or anyone in the community that needs help or just wants to hang out with friends. I think that would be essential to getting people back on track.
I'd like to add to Alan's real quick, and I agree, Co. I think I love those ideas because again, it's about relevance. It's what we're doing in the classroom. But Alan, I want to go back to your point too. When we talk about contract, it shouldn't be the school system telling you this is what you're going to sign. It should be this is what we're going to give you in return. So it's a two-way contract, not a one-way contract. So these are the kind of experiences that we want to give you. And then you're also saying, okay, that's what I want. That's why I want to be here. So it's a two-way contract between your school, your teachers, your leaders, and the student to say, this is what we're going to give you, but also too, this is what I want in return. That makes sense. I think I like the idea of the contract, but I wanted to expand on that a little bit too.
Yeah, some people at school are not interested. Now that you said it, I think we should ask them what they want to see in schools, because some people just are not interested to school at all. They just go there to be there or play soccer, just see people and then go back home. What do they want to see in school?
Mm-hmm. And then go back to Koa's point too. I think a lot of times like passion projects, if you look at students that this is our interest, this is what we want to do. For example, I've been in districts where you see like STLP. Anybody involved in STLP in here? that event at Rupp Arena is absolutely phenomenal. And you see students that have done research all year long and collaborate with people. Well, that gave them the reason, one of the reasons to be at school, and they come up with great ideas. They competed, but it's a technology exhibition where you just have that opportunity to just say, this is what I've learned, and these are some outcomes that I came with. Goes back to that contract concept of, this is what we're going to offer you as a school system. Is that what you want? And then, again, make sure that and that's what we talked about too, is relevance in that classroom.
And like kind of going off of that is like, especially like once you get to your upperclassmen years and you're seeing a lot of chronic absenteeism in high schoolers, I feel like a lot of us like resonate with the fact like senior year, you just kind of like get to that point and you're just like, I don't want to be here. That senioritis like really kicks in. And you lose a lot of interest because you're filling your schedule in with, say, like peer mentoring periods or an office aid period. And although like that is you being in the building and that's counting towards your seat time, it feels really irrelevant when you could be, I don't know, out making money. And that's where a lot of schools face the issue of competing with outside opportunities, because I feel like our generation especially is more focused on the hustle and the trying to make money and get ahead on certain things. So when you're trying to compete with that, a lot of schools are kind of at a loss of how do you engage students that have other options.
One thing that has worked well at my school is we have like certain incentives that make people feel like they have to come to school. Like we have a prom incentive. And so if you have 10, like up to 10 absences or tardies, like you're late to school, or you leave with like an unexcused absence, and you can't go to prom. And like they strictly enforce that. Like they like have a list, like you can't get into prom if you're on that list. And then we also have like with the dual credit classes, like I said, I get to school at 9 and leave at 11 because I have online classes during the other period times. And so if I have a certain amount of absences or tardies, then my release time gets taken away and I have to go to school and like sit in the library during that time that I could be at home or working or something. So having like incentives, like if you're not here, then you don't get this type of thing. And it's sad that it has to come down to that, like incentivizing people to come to school, which then goes back to like, how can we make people want to come to school, make it like to where you don't even have to like think about this or like have this conversation. And like, I guess a flaw with what we do at my school is like, what about the freshmen and sophomores who don't go to prom or who don't get that release time, or, how do we make it like fair to everybody in the school, not just the upperclassmen?
We also talked about how it kind of starts at home. And I feel like connecting with the parents would be a way to prevent absenteeism, because if the parent doesn't care, then the student doesn't see a reason to care either. And I feel like we should really push parents to show their kid why it matters, and also encourage connection with other students who are there all the time and who are on time, and show them like there are people who go and who can care, like you can care too, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's very helpful. That's actually a good segue. And I know there's some other great comments, so I don't want to cut them off, but maybe we can revisit, like you all hold those and share them after. Because one of the, remember the tiered approach, the tier 1 for everyone in Kentucky at a state level, an initiative that we've collaborated with an amazing communications team on is a campaign. So statewide campaign. And Jennifer was just talking about parents being the primary target of one of the primary targets of that campaign. So I don't know if anyone's time, and I really want to hear the other ideas because I know
Something that we, again, I don't know exactly. How many of you use Google Docs? Can we create a Google Doc and then add all the students to it, just for them to put their information down, their thoughts down on some ideas, because we really want to hear this part. So if we can get a Google Doc going where you could have input, and that way we see it, and we can move forward with some ideas too. So please, once we create this, and Dr. Jones, I think will do that for us. All right, so.
we will definitely be mining that for information. I'm Jennifer. So next slide, please. We did something kind of unusual for us just recently. We started an advertising campaign, a marketing campaign. I was kind of shocked when I saw the number of kids that were chronically absent. It was presented at a leadership meeting and my jaw dropped. So I'm assuming I wasn't the only one. So this is to let people know what chronic absenteeism is and just how prevalent it is. So we have a variety of things out there. Hopefully you've seen some, all. I'm hoping you've been exposed to it somehow. It's an awareness campaign just to let people know chronic absenteeism is a concern and being there every day matters. So you'll see we have billboards out. We've got them everywhere. We try to cover all areas of the state. The billboards, as you can see here, these are two that are actually up. We covered things we've heard keep kids in school, things they miss when they're not there. So it's like, we missed you at lunch. We missed you in class. We missed you in band. We missed you in recess. We missed you, I think in welding. We've got a welding picture. Anderson County was very nice and lent us their buildings for 2 days and some of their students so we could take pictures over the summer. We missed you in art. That's one of them. We try to hit from little kids to kids your age. So we have billboards up. They started in August. We've got 16 in Louisville, 9 in Lexington, 2 in Bowling Green, 2 in Paducah, one of the large digital ones in Covington, 2 in Pikeville, and 2 in London. And unfortunately, Dr. Fletcher didn't come soon enough for us to get one in Lawrence County. We had already signed the contracts. Next time. We also have iHeartMedia. We have radio ads, streaming ads, and it's kids. It's kids from these same pictures. They're in art, and it's a young student saying, "We missed you in art." It is recess. We missed you in recess. So you hear kids' voices and where they talk about, this is how many days it takes to be considered chronically absent. So those, they're on Spectrum. You can see the actual full TV ad is on Spectrum. You also will hear it on iHeart stations. There are a couple of radio stations. It's also on iHeart streaming. We're doing it on streaming in the English and Spanish language stations. And we also have a commercial out on Radio Vida, which is a Spanish language station as well, because we wanted to make sure everybody heard it. So has anybody seen any of these? Anyone? Okay, we got a couple, 3. Yes, at least something. Primarily, we want to make sure you guys hear it, but primarily we're also looking at letting parents know that this is a problem. Just talking to one of my coworkers and saying that the biggest absentee rate we're seeing right now is kindergarten. You know, at your age, high school students can sometimes say, nope, not going. Kindergartners, they rely on their parents to get them on the bus to the school. So parents really need to know this, you need to be there. You can't do all of these project-based learning, all of this innovative learning if you aren't there. So next slide, please.
And if I may add, one of the things to think about, to get a good picture, let's start off with a high school band class. And then you have students around playing instruments. And then there's an empty chair with a band instrument there. And the message there is, we missed you in band. There's another one that's one of my favorites. There's kids on a swing set, and everything else is kind of a little blurred on the edges, but you have one swing that's empty and it's not moving. And you got elementary kids standing around. Well, we missed you on the playground. And again, if you could tell, it's more about relationships. And I think if we look at students and talk to students and say, okay, how can we build those relationships to make you want to be here? But also just let you know, we missed you. So that's the approach that we're taking. Of course, a lot of that relies on students in the classrooms. You know, hey, someone was absent, notice. Just notice. You know, if there's somebody that you usually sit by in your AP calculus class or in your business class or whatever you do, and they're not there one day, let them know you missed them. We missed you yesterday. That makes a difference because you're noticed. You know, I rarely miss work, but even as commissioner, when somebody says, hey, Dr. Fletcher, we missed you yesterday, it makes me want to be back the next day. You know, that adds to it. So again, it's about that, you know what? Students can help us so much just by looking at someone and say, hey, we missed you. Hey, that you were out yesterday. Now, sometimes there's for good reason. That's okay. But just let you know, we'd love for you to be here and be involved. Be on the football team or be on the academic team or whatever experience that you have.
And we do have one actually that's we missed you at the game. It's some guys in their football gear that were getting ready for practice. We've got the empty helmet in front of them. So you see them walking behind the helmet. So a few of you have seen this. Now we are doing this campaign now. We are going to run the same commercials, the same ads in January. And we're going to do streaming longer. So streaming is going to be January, then it's going to be March, April, because coming back from the holidays, attendance tends to kind of drop off. So we want to get the message out there. Judging from your earlier conversation with Futurity, we are now going to have something we're putting up on Instagram shortly. You'll be able to see the entire commercial there, since a lot of you are on Instagram. I noticed only a couple on Facebook. We've been hitting Facebook pretty hard because, you know, that's where the parents are. That's where I am. But we're going to use what you will tell us to help alter where we go next. So, any ideas when we kick this off again beginning in January? Where would we reach you guys? Instagram obviously is one of them. Any other ideas on how we reach out, how we retool the message to make sure we're reaching the kids who need to hear it? I'm not gonna have you. Oh, awesome. There we go.
I would suggest YouTube. These are ads that I would actually watch, and there are a lot of young kids on YouTube right now. So if you just put a cute little "we missed you at recess" and somebody's watching with Coco Melon, they'll stop and go tell their parents, "Hey, like, let me go to school." And that's something that would be really beneficial.
Okay, excellent. Well, we thought about that idea. We'll have to explore that some more. I like that. Any others? Oh, awesome. How about you?
It might seem counterintuitive, but I do think it's worth putting up, say, posters in schools because while the idea of chronic absenteeism is you're not in school as much, we tend to notice when things change, like on the billboards. Like in my school, you walk by so many times, you know, down a hallway, you go, oh, it's something new. Let me look.
Okay.
I don't know if that's someone else's experience, but when you are in school and in those areas that are more familiar, when things change, we tend to grab our attention.
Okay, well, we can probably do something with that. I think maybe something that people can print off and post where they
But
want.
that might be, depending upon, I don't know, I'm one person, so.
Posters sound good? Do we like posters? Okay, so there was, I think you had one?
Oh yeah, well, I don't know if it could be feasible because it might just be my school. But my school has a Remind, and that's sort of the solid way to reach parents is just the Remind. And if we have a day that school's closing, like the Remind.
Right.
So maybe contacting school administrators and sending them some material that they can post on the Remind, like a infographic or something, and they could send it out to their parents.
That's a good idea. All righty. Or yes.
Do you want to go?
Hi. I'm sorry. In my school, if you're late or absent to classes for too many times, they will send you to the office and they will have a talk to you and you'll like sort of explain what happened. And they probably give you many resources if you go there. Like if you tell them the reason why you were absent and it's something that they can help you with, they will give you a resource that you can use to improve that. So I feel like this is a source that they can absolutely give you, just like give them to the office. And also posters. Like I also noticed when something changes. So I feel that also be great.
Okay. Well, we do have a fact sheet that we're finishing up that is designed more at parents, that school districts can just print off and hand out at like, we were hoping open house nights, but that's come and gone. But it's just something that they can hand out and it gives you the basic information on, here's the problem and here's why it's important. And we're also going to shortly, sometime before too long, we're going to have a list up. We have chronic absentee website on the KDE webpage. If you go to our homepage, there's a little button that says chronic absenteeism. Click on it and it will take you straight to it because finding stuff can sometimes be difficult. But it has all kinds of things for the community, things for parents, things that districts can use, feature some of the artwork that's up there. But on that website, we're going to have a list of chronic absentee by school district. So people can look and go, oh, okay, well, here's what it is for mine, to make it easier to find. So, you've got to know where you are or you can do anything about it. So keep an eye out for that one. Did you have something?
Yeah. I don't know if this is feasible or not, but I think that finding out where the kids are when they're not in school and maybe targeting those places for advertisements. Also, or local organizations that are really popular with kids, maybe putting up advertisements in those, having local school districts partner with those organizations to make sure the kids aren't just going there instead of school.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Well, one thing that we do think is that the reasons why kids are going to be absent are going to be different in each of your communities, right? Some may be facing housing issues. Some may be transportation. Some may be kids have to work to support the family. Some may be health issues. Getting involved at a community level and finding out what is happening in your school, in your district, how to engage in community partners, that's going to be an important piece of this as well. So as you go back, did you have something?
Yes, ma'am. Just kind of bouncing off of what you said. I feel like different communities have different needs. For my city in particular, we have a large amount of students that are below poverty level. So a lot of kids are going to work. Luckily, we have our work-based classes, like where we can go out and work for couple amount of hours, and we have to have a certain amount of hours during the week for it to count towards us. But also just saying, I don't know if this is like a long shot, but scholarship opportunities for people that have good attendance and they show up every day, even though like everybody loves money. And then there are people that want to go to college but can't afford it and want to take the next step in their career or whatever they plan to do after high school. But I think it's really important to meet the needs of those people in particular, because that's something that I see people struggle a lot with in our community. So
yeah, thank you. In some way, there is college money that's connected to your attendance, just in sort of a roundabout way. Keys money. Keys money is based on your GPA. If you're not in school, then your GPA is probably not going to be as high as it could be. So there is just a little bit of a roundabout connection there, but good idea.
Yeah. Just the last comment. I think we're close on time.
Okay, so I kind of just wanted to point out, like, you mentioned that like you've seen the largest increase in like elementary age students and that it falls on the parents to take them. It's not necessarily like in high school kids can decide whether or not they want to go. And I feel like a large part of that is obviously like parents not having access to the resources, or like it's not feasible sometimes for the parents to be able to get their kids to school, which it could be causing this increase, especially with like unemployment and issues like that after COVID. So I feel like almost instead of targeting or fully targeting the kids, it would be important to also target the parents and maybe provide resources on how can I get my kid to school? Like, what are alternatives, especially in like districts like Jefferson County where they're having like busing issues? Like, how can I ensure my kid's getting to school? Because sometimes it's easier said than done.
Right. Good point. All righty. Well, thank you so much. If we can, with that Google sheet, we'll also, if you have any ideas, any ways we can reach students more, please feel free to drop your comments in there. We love to have them. Thanks.
Thank you to Dr. Chang, Dr. Vandehar, and to Jennifer. And I will gladly put the questions or suggestions regarding the marketing, as well as some policy ideas and suggestions you have, so that we can maybe visit it at our next student advisory meeting. I'm going to move forward. I know we're looking forward to lunch in just a few moments. I do have a couple of announcements, and I do want to make sure everyone knows I will share the PowerPoint that was presented here today with you all by email. I'm also going to be sharing with you an exit slip for you all to provide some feedback to help us really shape and build our meetings for the future. There will be a few opportunities that might be of interest for you included in that exit slip, one of which is a call if you're interested in serving as chair or vice chair of the Student Advisory Council, excuse me. And so look for the details on that exit slip. If you're interested in what the requirement would be, we are looking to fill those positions before our next Student Advisory Council meeting. And I'm also have a question in there about some suggestions for future topics you'd like to visit. And before I wrap, Dr. Fletcher, anything else you'd like to add?
A couple of things. Thank you so much for your input. But two things. I want you to remain seated for just a second because I'm going to get a video because I want to make sure I know everybody's name. Okay. So before you leave, I want to go through like a good calculus teacher and make sure that I get everybody's names. So you can smile. You can make a funny face, but make sure your name's close to by. So before you get up, I want to get that. And also, too, we'd like to have a picture of the group, too, before we go, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you so much for your input. But also, please, I've heard so many great ideas about topics already. Make sure you get that information on there. I mean, one of the things that you may hear a lot about is even our accountability system. That's a big topic in KDE right now, and it's a big topic for your districts. As a matter of fact, some of your districts are actually serving on a study phase with us. As I go through and look at it, there's different ones that are taking part of that. So even go back and talk to other students and say, okay, what are some things that you'd like to know about? What would you like to hear about? What can we provide for you to say, okay, this is information that we have. What input did you have back for us? For example, the chronic absenteeism is something that we're working through right now. We're going to take your ideas. Matter of fact, I wrote down one of the ideas. I hadn't even thought about the Remind app that so many school districts use. How can we that's a simple way just to send something to a district and ask them, could you put this on your social media apps or anything where you're reaching out to parents? So some great ideas, and we really appreciate that. So again, make sure you look for that email and also for that Google app. And then when we close, stay seated, if you wouldn't mind. I'm going to get up and get a video of everybody very quickly behind your name so I can remember everybody's name, okay?
And our next meeting date, I'll share this in an email as well, but our next meeting for the Advisory Council is virtual. So we look forward to seeing you online on October 29 at 9 a.m. So this concludes now our meeting, but as Dr. Fletcher said, please stand by. We are going to take a photo of the group. Thank you all.